the Charter School Connection podcast. My name is Shawn Wortham, and I'm going to give a brief intro for the episode that you're about to listen to with Dr. Kristina Kyles-Smith. She is the Chief Executive Officer of Lillie Mae Carroll Jackson Charter School. It's an all-girls 5 through 8 charter school out in Baltimore, Maryland. Dr. Kyles-Smith is a good friend of mine. We've kept tabs on each other for the past couple years now, as we've both been deeply ingrained in the charter school world, and I'm excited for you to listen to her account of getting involved with Lillie Mae and being in a very historical part of Baltimore and her story. So I hope you enjoy. Dr. Kyles-Smith, thank you so much for hopping on our podcast today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for the ability to be with you. I'm humbled and ready to jump in.
Great. Well, thank you for your willingness to kind of take a couple questions from us and kind of share with us a little bit about your background, but also just what LMCJ is doing out in Baltimore right now. You guys, as you're already well aware, that our listeners will also be well aware of, is you're just a very unique school serving a unique population. And I feel like a lot of people are going to get a lot of benefit from listening from you and your lessons learned in life. But to start off, would you mind explaining to our visitors a little bit about your background and just help us understand a little bit more about you?
Well, sure. Not to bore you with too many details. My name is Kristina Kyles-Smith, and I have been a lifelong educator. Believe it or not, I was not the one who lined my teddy bears up as a kid. Education was never my dream. I kind of fell into it because my local college put aside a high school scholarship for students interested in going to that school, and their only requirement was I taught. So having not had a full grounded idea of what to do after I left high school, I thought we could figure out how to make it work in the education space. And I took the scholarship and have enjoyed it. I am a alumna of Hope College in Holland, Michigan, where I got my undergraduate degree. After that, I kind of enjoyed figuring out all the spaces in education. So I have taught high school histories and social sciences. I have ran in Boston a program called METCO, which is a one-way desegregation program, which is very beautiful and interesting. They call it the other busing story. I've spent time, so there's been a lot of time in equity, educational justice in that space. I've been a high school principal, both in Boston and in Maryland. I have been a district official, a curriculum director, coordinator for K-12 education. I served as what I like to call the assistant principal of all the other stuff. You know, like the assistant principal of curriculum, and then you have the one who does all the other stuff.
Yeah.
But at the state level, as an assistant superintendent of student and family and school support in Maryland, serving under an amazing superintendent, Dr. Lillie and Lowry. After that, I got more into the national space with project-based learnings, was able to understand and learn a little bit about this space from EL Education, which is a project-based social justice organization. And then during COVID, kind of fell into managing charter networks. So I have been able to see both in the classroom, around the classroom, under the classroom, over the classroom, but most importantly, how important this particular system is for the continuity of communities and for the continuity of family legacies, and really enjoy being able to help schools organize their success towards the legacy of their community and the families that they serve.
Whoa, that's awesome. I think you did a really good job. I don't know how you fit all that so succinctly, but that was great. Thank you for that. How did your experience help you as you switched over to LMCJ? And if you don't mind just going over like a brief history of LMCJ and like how they brought you on, I'm just interested on how that started.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like school leaders, both at the principal seat and also at the executive director or CEO seat, however your school situates it, has to be really deeply knowledgeable of instruction and able to see how every move you make supports the classroom, right? I have this idea. I can't remember where I picked it up from, but someone who reminded me that we all line up behind the front line. And for us, the front line, the only thing that makes the best magic happen is teachers and students and protecting their time together. So all those experiences I have allowed me to see all the things that kind of impact a teacher and a student being able to just have their day and do their thing. So I say to my staff, I try really hard to do the Care Bear stare, where I just stand at the door and make sure that anything that is trying to block the learning time gets unblocked. And it's a wild array of things, right? It can be anything from a state policy to a local policy. It can be a local crime rate. It can be a pesky fox. It can be a beehive. Like it is anything at any given time. And from a principal seat or a CEO seat, you have to be like ready to kind of jump in, have a good set of networks, be able to manage those pieces and move forward. So I've been at Lillie Mae for 3 years, coming next month. But I've known it since its almost inception. Lillie Mae was birthed out of a discussion in 2009 and 2012, like a small rumbling around around small schools, like do small schools matter and should they be nested in a portfolio of a larger school system? Also, how can private and public work together to bring something beautiful? So we hail, and this is good, I'm going to say this on a national network, we hail ourselves as the only public school in America, and please, I hope your listeners will help me set the record straight if this is not correct, that was founded and incubated by a private school. So our incubator, the one who said, yes, we will give you office space, we'll give you brain think, we'll give you startup capital, both human capital, physical capital, and social capital, was a private school called Roland Park Country School, which is, it also did it along with 3 other schools, Bryn Mawr and Roland and Gilman. And these schools really thought, how do we expand our base? How do we figure out how to get more students to be able to learn like this? How can we figure out how we can be more inclusive? You can spend $25,000 on one of our students, but we can't house every student in Baltimore. So how do we make a space where we can get more students who can access this? So we have funders who will pay for a tuition there and then pay for half a teacher here. And that will ultimately suffice in making sure if there's a public and private inclusivity to this type of project-based, heart-based, girl only school model. So in 2015, we opened our doors and we started in a rented building from our school district and had, grew the every year model, started with 5th and 6th and then grew to 7th and grew to 8th. And so then charter leaders know this very well, that then every school year is a different year. Then we bought our forever home in a little quaint neighborhood called South Clifton in East Baltimore. And it has a great history and legacy. So now we sit ourselves in the second home of the first public high school for pregnant teens, which closed in 2008, but opened in 1968. So there are some of our students who actually were carried as embryos in our building. So it's been really cool to see this building come back alive, the neighborhood, the network come back alive, to be able to learn from the legacy of that principal who was here. So ultimately, all those particular pieces really make the nexus of our school really, really special. The assets are rich, dripping with history, dripping with community, connection, purpose. It's a really great space. And I've been able to do this for 3 years now.
Wow, man, that's so cool. And it just sounds very rewarding. So that's just so cool. And you and I, we've known each other for, I want to say, a couple years now. And I can just tell that there's like a light in your eyes when you talk about your students, talk about what you're doing. I can tell you really believe in your mission statement. You really like wake up every morning like wanting to give it your best. You're not just treating it like a job, but you're treating it much more than that. So that's great. So I love how it's just been a recent start within, you said you hit your 10-year mark. Is that right?
Yes, this fall was the 10th anniversary of our opening in 2015. Yeah.
So congratulations on your 10-year anniversary. That's great. Um, and I would just love to have our listeners just kind of learn, like, if you don't mind sharing, like, what were some of the challenges that you had with, getting this school off the ground? How did you overcome said challenges? Um, and like, what are you guys doing, these days? Like, what's some cool things that you guys are doing? So I guess that's kind of a two-part question. But
I mean, I will add, you've known, I started November 1st. I might have connected with Charter Connect like November 15th. Y'all were one of my first calls out the gate to really understand. I think one of our biggest challenges post-COVID as a middle school is when kids came back to COVID from the pandemic, all schools were a little bit off. Middle schools, hats off to everyone who runs, supports, loves on, teaches in middle schools. They're already wonky in the first place. You can be talking about global warming in statistical form with an 8th grader in one moment, and then on the floor rolling around with, I don't know, food is stinky in the next moment. So it is really these complex polyhedrons you deal with in middle school, the middle school space. But in that moment, we were challenged with enrollment, and we're seeing urban cities have a decline in enrollment in general. Then the idea of having everyone come back on site. So we had a significant loss of students in 2022. And also we had moved into this new building, which we had moved from a pretty highly well-populated like suburb neighborhood to a neighborhood that was less populated, had more commercial and had more vacant homes. And so we were trying to make sure we're still creating a walkable space. So that was one of our challenges. I think all school challenges are surmounted, believe it or not, I believe, through loving on the classroom. I think nothing works unless your classrooms work. And so in that moment, the goal was really to figure out how to support our teachers and our school leadership team in having the proof of concept, bringing out like no mission creep, fall all the way in, nerd out on our school. Our school is named for what we call the mother of civil rights in Baltimore. Dr. Jackson or Dr. Lillie, as affectionately known, was the first president of the NAACP Baltimore City chapter, and she was it for 38 years. And so there's a lot of recognized civil rights movement activism that Dr. Jackson kicked off, or was a part of navigating herself in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, even down to being a part of the authoring body of the SNCC sit-in curriculum, teaching college students and high school students how to sit in on lunch counters. So our goal in creating the next generation of young women willing to protect their communities and feel grounded and love themselves and their families enough to have the extra space to support their communities is baked into our mission. It's baked into our location now. It's baked into all those pieces. So we really focused on updating our curriculum, updating our cementing our traditions, really building strong community partners who would not only invite our students in for a day of fun, but for a day of deep learning. So we, as an EL school, do field work, not field trips, in which our students leave off with a very clear set of questions to ask leads and people to help them bring back an answer to a particular question they study for 6 weeks. And that 6-week expedition is showcased in a celebration of learning, which is more like a community forum for each grade on a particular topic that we're trying to solve in our community. So really getting deep on that. Our first year, our celebration of learning, our expeditions got a little bit tighter, and we celebrated that much more. And all of it, not necessarily tighter, but really just reorienting after COVID, celebrating the great work of the leaders who had come before us and who had transitioned out. We then worked really hard on making sure that we were amplifying our message. And I think you all really helped us think through some of the small tweaks that we could do in that piece to like, have you thought about how many posts you're making? This, that, and the third. Have you thought about how you're ranking? And we found that we hadn't moved ourselves from the old building's website to this building to all those particular pieces that we had to kind of fix and clean up. So amplifying our message and then getting our community in. Those three things really helped us set a foundation where we were ready to accept partnerships at a deep level. So when someone said, hey, we're thinking about starting this XYZ, we were ready to really dig in, think about how it could ground us in our mission, be very tied to girls' education and springboard off, and those kind of things. For example, Morgan State University, they have a girls in STEM, a girl engineering club, and they were like, well, we can come over every Wednesday and work your STEM lab. Cal Ripken and BG&E and Exelon send us their whole STEM lab packet with 3D printers and but we had no one to work them. Morgan came in and said, we'll work them with you. So now we have them coming in every Wednesday for 6th graders. So like those types of things helped us be ready for those partnerships that really bring out the beautiful of community-based learning and place-based learning.
Whoa, that's so cool. I love how you mentioned, like, yes, you did some things with your website, you did some marketing practices that helped you overcome enrollment. But before you talked about that, you talked about focusing on the classroom. There's so many people that will reach out to us here at Charter Connect and be like, save us, like we need help with enrollment. And then we'll, start doing marketing best practices. And we're like, hey, we sent you, 50 new students this month, but it doesn't matter because they lost 60 and they just had bad retention. And we found out it's like, okay, you don't have a marketing problem. You don't have an enrollment problem. You have a retention problem. You have a classroom problem is what you have.
Exactly.
So the fact that you focus on the actual source and the classroom and loving on the students and providing like community project-based learning, that's the type of stuff that increases word of mouth and really helps, with the long-term growth. So kudos to you for doing that. Just focus, keeping your mind always set on the students.
I think my daughter is in 4th grade and she is very clear where she's going next year. And I live very adjacent, like just 10 minutes away. I'm 20 minutes away, but 10 miles away, but not in the city. So I'm going to have to actually pay tuition to send my child to my own school. And I feel like that's right. I feel like if I'm to each his own, but I feel like this is a conversation this is not about other people's children, right? This is about our community, our students. If it's good enough for someone else, it is great enough for mine. It makes you think differently about it. And some of the best schools that I've been able to walk through across the country have been that community-based, where the community, there's lots of parents and leaders who say like, the schools are, for our students. And I'm very excited to do that.
Yeah. So kind of like towards the end of the podcast, like a point I want to kind of hammer is from just knowing you've said that you need to have a model that works for everyone, not just a model that works for some. And so I love how, again, you're kind of bringing that point up. Can you kind of talk to me just more, like expand more on that? Like what kind of model are you trying to build, and like how have you created this model? How can listeners and charter school administrators who are listening to your story rethink their model and like ways that they can make it work for everyone?
I think it's just to slightly amend, I think the way in which a school design comes to shape is really based on a particular need. And I think every school has their own particular needs that they shape their thing on. It's not necessarily about being able to serve everyone. It's being able to serve more, but there's a portfolio of schools, right? Every school has its piece. And I will say to some people, Lillie Mae is an all-girls school. We are about public speaking. We are about helping girls see themselves in their skin. We are about community. You will not be able to hide. If you went to a big school and you are a student who wants to sit in the back, that is not a thing. Our classrooms are only 18 to 19 students. So we tell parents right off the bat that we are not for everyone because our model is our model. We do then in that space have students and parents who start to believe in our model as a particular way. And even now, even more parents are coming to me and saying, my student needs Lillie Mae which is really great to hear, because she needs to come out of her shell, or now she's hiding and I need her to this, that, and the third. So now a lot of people who are seeing our model more vividly are coming to our community, our Lillie Live events, we call them. But I think for school leaders, the goal is to fall in your mission, not out of your mission. Yes, I got a STEM lab. I am not a STEM school, but your student will be engaged in STEM activities. Absolutely. But if you wanted to be like a traditional STEM school, and I got to see this amazing STEM school in Utah called Beehive Academy, that is a STEM school. Like I am honored. I was honored to walk the halls of that building. They do it better than I've ever seen it. We are a school that really makes leaders, community-based leaders. That is us. And STEM is a place we need leaders. And AI is a place we need leaders. And, Congress and that kind of things is that way we need leaders. So ultimately, when I see the Beehive Academy, I actually then fall into how can I do that in this space? Not how can I do that, but how can I figure out like the way they've nerded out on their model, how do I nerd out on this model? And I think it takes a moment of recognizing that I'm not in competition with my colleague schools, that I literally am a part of the portfolio and I really want to make sure my niche is my niche. I'm not in competition for students. We are really trying to build the same community and make sure the community runs. And when I move out of that space, I can move into a space of more deeply celebrating with my colleagues the beautiful portfolio and therefore getting more access to others, for others.
That's awesome. And yeah, shout out to Beehive Academy. That's really awesome. I love how you said for your model, like, just know who you are and make sure whatever you do is falling in your model. Some of the schools that I see maybe struggle the most are the ones that are like, we are an online hybrid arts, STEM. And it's like they're just like this jambalaya of a school, and it's like, okay, well, maybe we can just be a little bit more focused, like, and instead of doing a bunch of things, well, we can do like one or two things really, really, really well and be the best.
Yeah, and if you get lost, the easiest way to find your way home is to talk to your students and your parents, right? Like I remember when I was at another school, Dunbar High School in Baltimore City, another great one of the schools here in the city, and I was like, why did you come here? And I asked probably 150 people that over a couple of weeks and found out that there were 3 reasons. One, they came because of the legacy. It is a school that's been open for almost 100 years. They came in, their uncles, grandmothers, great-grandparents had come there. It was known for sports. Dunbar is known for having one of the best high school basketball teams in the history of American high school basketball. It's 82, 83 team. Shout out to Muggsy Bogues and that whole crew. And it also was known as a health profession school. So I decided to nerd out and amplify all those 3 pathways, making sure legacy was rich and dripping through the school and health professions was dripping through the school, and kids just really flourished moving through those spaces. So the same here, like we're nerding out. We have gardens everywhere and an arboretum outside. We give lilies every day. You have a lily passing ceremony. You have blooming lily circles. Sisterhood drips through the building, leadership. So those types of students who have public speaking 15 times, but ultimately the goal is ask parents, ask students, and they will help you find your way back.
Man, I love that. Yeah, way to just take it and make it more practical for some of our listeners to know, like, where do I start? Okay. Well, I've loved, what you've talked about and your insights. I feel bad. This is kind of an open-ended, vague question, but is there anything else that you'd like to talk about before we conclude? Like, it could be about your future plans for yourself or for LMCJ, or is there anything that you feel like we haven't covered?
I just feel like this moment has us all thinking about a lot of things with federal funds in flux or changes in government and how do we as schools situate ourselves in it? And I would, at Lillie Mae, I think we're doing the same thing that we've done, probably a little bit more. We're listening, we're connecting to our community a little bit deeper, we're holding space for conversations, but also we are protecting our core through the middle. There's a lot of schools in this space that are not able to figure out how to financially solve their way through the next couple of years with some of the changes and funding mechanisms and the like. And I really just implore people to, protect their peace, protect their core. Because if you can wait this moment out, I think we'll be able to rise up a little bit better, stronger, knowing that the idea of having innovative, spaces like charter schools are really important for our next. And so just hang in there. We need us.
No, that's such a cool thought. And yeah, I work with hundreds of charter schools nationwide, and I love how you address it's not just one person that's feeling it right now. Like, there's just a lot of just uncertainty and maybe a little bit of worry from a bunch of different charter schools nationwide. And I love how it's just like, hey, like, remain calm, like, stick to your guns, like, stay in your community, like, that'll get you through. And yeah. Um, Thank you so much for that thought. I know that charter schools has been slowly growing over a period of time, but there's always the peaks and the valleys, and I'm just so happy to have met you, to know you, and to be able to network with you and see what LMCJ is doing. And I know you guys are just going to continue to do great things in the future. And yeah, I'm just so grateful for your time. Thanks for joining our podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. One of my greatest mentors said to me one day, if you work hard to keep your heart there, our students will be on the right side. And so keep following that notion because they will be, especially if you're putting your heart and soul into what you think is this kind of school that they desire.
Oh, man. Awesome. Well, thanks so much again. And yeah, we'll stay in touch.
Sounds good. I'll probably be calling you again soon.